Okay, hello. Have a go at the 10 questions in front of you. I'll move that to make it a little bit easier. And the answers will be up in 5 seconds. Okay, mark your answers. If you're struggling, if you're finding it tough, do you need to do more studying or do you need to ask more questions? Do one of them, please. So we've looked at the nervous system. We're going to start specifically looking at the brain itself, and in particular, a section of the brain called the cerebral cortex. So pause the video and have a look at the key learning points. So we learned previously, didn't we, about the structure of the nervous system. If you need to remind yourself, just pause the video. But we're going to be looking particularly at the brain and a particular part of the brain. Now, if you go back to National 5 biology, we learned a little bit about the brain, but barely anything. It's shocking, really. But you'll remember from National 5 that the medulla controls, what is it? Yep, heart rate and breathing rate. The cerebellum, yep, balance and coordination. And then for the cerebrum, you probably had a huge list of things of what the cerebrum does. Things like intelligence, personality, reasoning, memory. So there's lots and lots of things that the cerebrum carried out. And it's the cerebrum that we're going to be looking at in particular. But it's a particular part of the cerebrum. It's the outer layer, if you like, of the cerebrum, called the cerebral cortex. So if you look at the diagram, you'll be able to recognize some of the different parts of the brain. So medulla and cerebellum down here, you'll remember from National 5, and they help to make up the central core. Then inside the brain, we've got what's called the limbic system. We'll come back to that at a later date. But we're really focusing in on the cerebrum. And the cerebrum is made up of 2 hemispheres. You've got the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And that's sometimes why people will talk about left brain and right brain. So this is the basic summary of what the function is of the cerebral cortex. So conscious thought, memories, helps to recall memories, and plays a major role in learning. But we can break it down a bit more than that. So the cerebral cortex has what's called localization of brain function. And what that means is that a particular job is carried out by a particular part of the cerebral cortex. So I'll say that again. This localization of brain function means that particular jobs are carried out in certain areas of the brain. So for example, if you look at this diagram here, you can see that the back of the brain is dedicated to this pinky purple bit is dedicated to visual. So eyes and being able to see. Auditory, so we can see here this little blue and the sky blue. So that's to do with hearing. So different parts of the brain carry out different jobs. And this can be summarized into 3 main areas just to make it a little bit easier for us. So there are sensory areas, motor areas, and association areas. So the sensory sections of the cerebral cortex, well, they are receiving impulses from the sense organs down the sensory neurons. So if you think back to National 5 and you think about the stimulus being detected by the receptor, and then that impulse traveling down the sensory neuron, well, it will travel down the sensory neuron to a sensory area of the brain. Motor areas as well. So the motor areas send impulses from the motor area to the effectors. So either a muscle or a gland, and that helps to bring about a response. The association areas are the sort of where the decision making almost takes place. So this is a really complex part of the brain, the association areas. So the sensory areas bring the information to the brain, and then that gets passed to the association areas. And the association areas will deal with that information, and they'll compare that information perhaps to past memories, and will bring about a decision, if you like. And then that will get passed to the motor area, and the motor area will then bring about the response. So it's just highlighting some of the things that the association areas are involved in on the screen there. How do we know what different parts of the brain do? Well, a couple of ways. We can carry out scans. There are various scans that can be carried out to detect activity within the brain when an individual is carrying out a particular task. So you can see when they're carrying out a particular task, you can see which areas of the brain are most active, and that helps you to work out which parts of the brain are involved in that particular task. But also, damage to the brain can help us to work out what the different parts of the brain do. So the top left is a picture of Phineas Gage. So there'll be a video to watch of Phineas Gage. But basically, he damaged a part of his brain, and it meant that he was unable to do certain things because of the damage to that part of his brain. So injury can help scientists and doctors work out what different parts of the brain do, as well as these scans. So we said earlier on that there are two hemispheres making up the cerebral cortex, or the cerebrum. So you've got your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere, and they're actually connected together. So you literally have a left brain, if you like, and a right brain. And there is this bundle of fibers, this bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. And it's the corpus callosum that allows information to pass from one side of the brain to the other side of the brain. So information that's in the right side of the brain can pass across to the left side of the brain, and information that's in the left side of the brain can pass across through the corpus callosum to the right side, to the right hemisphere. Some other things that you need to know about the brain. So the right hemisphere, or the right side of the brain, controls the left side of the body. And the left hemisphere, or the left side of the brain, controls the right side of the body. And again, just to confuse matters even more, if you were to have a look in front of you, well, the right field of view, the information that's on the right side of the image that you're looking at, will pass into both eyes. But then, as it gets sent to the brain, that information passes from the right field of view to the left brain, or the left hemisphere. And the information that's on the left side of the field of view goes into both eyes, but then gets passed to the right side of the brain. And then what normally happens in a normal human is that information is shared. So the information that's in the right brain and the information that's in the left hemisphere, well, that will just be shared with each other through the corpus callosum. So you get a full picture of what it is that's in front of you. Just one other thing to keep in mind is something called Broca's area. And this is usually found on the left side of the brain. And this is the area of the brain that produces speech. So I'm going to give you some problems to solve in a minute. But I'm just going to review what we've said, because you'll need to remember this. So the corpus callosum connects the left and the right hemisphere. The right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. The right field of view goes to the left hemisphere. The left field of view goes to the right hemisphere. And finally, the area for producing speech is usually in the left hemisphere. So I'm going to give you a problem to solve using all that information in a minute. But first of all, what I would like you to do is just focus on the dot in the middle of the screen. Okay, keep focusing on that dot. Right, what did you see? Say it out loud. Go on, shout it. What did you see then? Well, hopefully you saw a little dog and a postbox. Okay, so what happened in your, in inverted commas, normal brain? Well, the right field of view, the information about the postbox, got sent to your left hemisphere. And your left field of view, the dog, got sent to your right hemisphere. That information is then shared between your left and the right. Okay, so the information that's on the left hemisphere gets sent to the right-hand side through the corpus callosum, and the information that's on the right-hand side gets sent to the left-hand side through the corpus callosum. Now remember, we said that the area for speaking is in the left side of the left hemisphere of the brain. So you were able to say what you saw. You were hopefully able to say dog and postbox, because the left hemisphere has both pieces of information because it's been shared through the corpus callosum. Now, there is a condition called split brain. And this is where the corpus callosum has been snapped or severed or cut in some way, so that there is no connection between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. There is no way for the left hemisphere to talk or pass information to the right hemisphere. It's as though you've got two separate brains. Now, keep that in mind. So pause the video. If I was to ask somebody with a split brain to say what they saw in this picture whilst focusing on the spot, what would they say? Well, what would they say? Well, they would say postbox. They wouldn't be able to mention the puppy dog. Why? Well, that information on the right field of view of the postbox has gone to the left hemisphere. The left field of view has gone to the right hemisphere. And normally what would happen is the information about the dog would move across the corpus callosum to the left, where the speech area is, and that information could then be spoken. But because there is no corpus callosum, the only information that the left hemisphere has is postbox. It sounds like I'm lying to you. I know, it sounds like this is crazy, but it's true. And again, there'll be a video for you to watch on this, a video about a man called Joe. Have a go at the next one. So if I ask a person with a split brain to draw with their right hand what they saw, what would they draw? So pause the video and have a think about it. Okay, so how have you got on? So with the right hand. So which side of the brain controls the right hand? Well, it's the left hemisphere, again, that controls the right hand. What information does the left hemisphere have? The left hemisphere only has postbox, because no information can move across the corpus callosum. So if you ask this person to draw what they saw, they would only, with their right hand, they would only be able to draw the postbox. And this is where it gets even more bizarre. What happens if you showed them this picture and then asked them to draw what they saw with their left hand? Well, left hand is controlled by right hemisphere. What information does the right hemisphere have? Puppy dog. So if they drew it with their left hand, they would just draw the dog, and they wouldn't draw the post box. So again, genuinely, this is true. I'm not lying to you. Have a look at the key learning points. You've probably got questions on this. Look forward to hearing them.